together peacefully to create new ideas, new solutions through decentralization. That's what Nexus is about, and that's what you are about. And so right now, it is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome our next speaker, Colin Cantrell, the founder of Nexus.
Welcome. Thank you. Well, all right, this on? All right.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Nexus conference. Glad you guys all made it here. It's a long track for some of us, but we all made it. So I guess I'm going to start over with kind of beginning on some of the history of Nexus and kind of where the genesis of this idea came from. So it kind of started, I guess you could say, a long time ago when I started realizing some of the things that were wrong with the world, how we see how these central banks are starting to take over different governmental systems, and how people, I guess you could say, have been divided further and further through politics, through sports teams, through any other type of, how should I say it, societal structure and psychological structure that keeps people from really seeing the true essence of who we are. And so when I was on this path and I started working on alternative energy systems, trying to figure out how to increase the efficiency of automobiles by, vaporizing the fuel, or working on electrolysis methods to kind of make cleaner burning gasoline engines. And then that led me into cryptocurrencies in about 2013. And I realized, hey, this is the way that we can truly change the world. Now we have tools. We have tools at our disposal in order to make things better. But the other thing that really needed to be seen, and that's something Satoshi brought with his idealism, is that, how do I say it, we need to change our thoughts. We need to change the way you think. And when I first started building Nexus, I didn't know how to build it. There was nothing there. You had to look at the code. That's all there was to see. And from that, it kind of just started this long journey through lines and lines and lines. 170, 180,000 lines, until eventually started learning to think like Satoshi thought, because everybody has their own psychological fingerprint that you can see through the code. And that's how I learned how to code, is by learning to read other people's code and seeing how they thought. And so from there, I kind of followed Satoshi's original ideas and learned to think like him, and then said, okay, well, how can we take this further? How can we move things from this step to that step and take it to the next level? Because Bitcoin was kind of left unfinished then, and Satoshi left after WikiLeaks added it, surprisingly enough, because Satoshi was, knew kind of battering the beehive that Bitcoin would really do, because it challenges, like Napolitano was saying, the crown. It challenges the ways that they have created central power structures that allow them to create taxation without representation, allow them to take away our rights, allow them to create these covert wars, and all these operations that really are reducing our ability to be free. Now, people say, who are they? Who are they? You're talking about they. Well, the word Ernest Hancock, he said, they are those who will not leave us alone. And we have the unalienable right to live. We have the right to have our own place. The earth provides everything for everybody. There's land everywhere, but some man has to go and they have to take a stake, put it in the ground, and put an invisible border up and say, hey, now this is my land. You can't come in here, but the government can. But then we got all these state roads that we can block whenever we want, and we can tax you for it, and then we can give you the illusion that you need to do all of this, when society can exist without these things. We're still running on this archaic system that's running on paper. And even some of the politicians now are starting to realize some of the limitations of it, and that's where we get to blockchain. Because for the first time ever, we look at the hippie revolution, where they were protesting the war. They were trying to stop all of these problems from coming into the world. They were trying to say, hey, peace and love. Let's have some fun. Let's all live together. There's plenty of space everywhere. Why can't we all get along? And then the war ended, and it was kind of feeding that system. And something that I think we've forgotten these days is that we're still kind of feeding the government. When we think about all of these problems, and we think, that doesn't really do anything to service. And it's really kind of, when you start to understand the truth of everything, it's kind of scary, because you just, wow, this world is run by criminals. And what are we going to do about it? And blockchain is that solution. And that's why Nexus development started in about 2014, because I kind of, how do I call it, a Bitcoin purist. I still see Satoshi's ideals alive in the cryptocurrency industry these days, but there's certain aspects of it that have maybe been drowned out through the profits or the money, or we're all gonna do this and that and we're gonna make all these everything. And it doesn't service the people as it should. We have centralization in mining. We have Bitmain that produces 70, 80, 90% of all the ASICs. They even tried the Antbleed bug to put a backdoor into it. We have NSA putting backdoors into computers. Intel processors have their own processor in them that can open and read your memory and make TCP connections. That's why they're buying all these old computers. And there's so much that's happening right now that we can solve with immutable ledgers. And we can solve it by distributing the system out, because it's us that gives power to the government. It's us that gives power to the system by believing in them, by believing in that power. And by having new alternative systems to create, like we can with Bitcoin, with Nexus, with cryptocurrencies, that allows us to take that power and put it into our own hands. But now, together, we have the tools to do that. And that's part of my role in everything here is I've been building tools, I've been building systems, I've been developing architectures by sitting back and watching how the Bitcoin industry matures and saying, well, what would Satoshi do? How can we take this and move it to the next level? Because Bitcoin has had the scaling solution problem, right? There's big blockers and there's small blockers. But if you read Bitcoin talk, you'll see Satoshi Nakamoto was the one that initially put the block size cap on to say, well, it's easy to fill up blocks right now because it's cheap. So now, if we upgrade the block size, you show people how to hard fork it. You put it n height, you set the height, say, hey, when the height's greater than this, bam, you change the block size. And then for some reason, we have this block size suppression for the soft fork and everything, and that created chaos in Bitcoin. And I think a lot of these ideals have been lost because the original creator, nobody even knows about who he is anymore. I mean, people know what a Satoshi is, but Satoshi Nakamoto, like, who is he? What were the idealism behind it? What was Bitcoin really built for? And I personally believe in the liberty of it. I believe that cryptocurrencies have the ability to free us. They have the capability to rival world economies. They have the capability to change the world for the better. But it's simply a tool, right? Anybody can have a hammer. You can have a hammer. Somebody will learn, hey, I can beat someone in the head with this hammer. Somebody can learn, I can build a house. Now, that's the second part of it all, because without the proper idealism, without the proper mental structures and understanding, how should I say it, greater constellations of truth, higher dimensional, like bird's eye view of a city compared to looking through the streets, then we start to understand that we're all connected. We're all here on the same planet, and we don't need to be fighting each other. We can overcome these problems peacefully. We can work through our solutions because everybody's differences are strengths. That's what empowers all of us. That's what grows us all together. That's what brings us together. And when we recognize those things and stop fighting and trying to convince our opinion on somebody else, then we're going to start to realize that all of our opinions together mesh together to create a perfect puzzle. And those idealisms are something that I'm starting to see with cryptocurrencies, because the world, how should I say, it does not change just by people believing that we need the change. It changes by people believing in a common goal and having a common purpose together. And cryptocurrencies now are this common purpose. Now we're realizing we can decentralize the world. We can eliminate these power structures that are causing us all these problems where we're seeing, I mean, people like Edward Snowden are speaking out for liberty, and then they're hiding in Russia. People like Julian Assange are whistleblowing, trying to help people realize what the shadow governments are doing. And a lot of people don't even know their lives are kept under slavery. We're all kept under economic slavery. We're born with a bond on our name. We're all kept as debt slaves. And we need to change that if we're going to really see liberty in the future, because the crown, as we know it, has come in and it has infiltrated again. It's taken the beauty of what the United States was supposed to be and eliminated a lot of that, where it's even illegal to talk about the Constitution in certain ways. And I think the way that we can take this power back, the way that we can do that is by joining together. And that's why we're always divided. That's why we're always so busy doing things that we never have time to sit and be and realize that there's a lot more to life than we think that has been force-fed to us through the media, through the zombie apocalypse with the smartphones, where people are running into walls because they don't even know where they're going anymore, right? I mean, we all know that. Like, yeah, the zombie apocalypse, it's here already, like, unfortunately. And, you know, I think we're coming into a time right now where there's a necessity for this change. Now, evolution as we commonly know it happens sequentially, or as we're taught, it happens in a series. Oh yeah, every generation you get better. But the true evolution of the species comes at what's called the precipice, which is the brink of destruction. And we're seeing that. The world's divided. It's fighting. We're having civil wars. We're having people trying to push their opinions on everybody and saying, I'm right, no, this border's more than your border, and this money's more, and then hyperinflation going everywhere. And we need to do something about that. And we don't even have to worry about what that is. All we have to do is be aware of that to make sure that we don't let what we're doing become corrupted, because it starts in our minds. And that's really what creates everything. We're the ones that give value to the dollar by putting our sweat and blood into earning it. We're the ones that value Bitcoin by putting our sweat and blood into earning it. And that's one of the beauties of it, is we're starting to see that we have the capability, we have the tools now to actually make this change. And now we have the common goal because we have the tools and we know that we're all connected. If your brain didn't form connections, you would be a retard. I mean, that's the total essence of everything. If your body couldn't connect to it, you wouldn't have a proper nervous system. Your legs wouldn't be able to communicate with one another. Matter wouldn't be able to connect. I mean, even if you look inside of a cell, it's its own universe, and everything in there is connected. All your DNA, molecules form connections because it lowers their potential energy, which starts the basis of life. Connection is that I think a lot of people have lost. And we've lost it in the thought that there's no hope, or there's World War III, or watching the news, and those things we don't need anymore. We need each other. We need to come together with each other. And that's one of the real, how should I say it, idealisms of Nexus that, has brought a lot of people together here today. That is part of the genesis of the whole idea, is that we now have a common goal and we have a common tool, but if we don't keep those idealisms alive, then we're going to just turn this tool into another system that has created some of the atrocities we see in this world. And I personally believe in the world. I believe in people, and I believe people have a natural goodness that's taken advantage of. People say, oh yeah, trust and love, oh, that's naivety. No, I mean, that's true human nature. We're not angry by birth. We naturally want to trust and love one another, but that's very difficult to do when you have a world that's turned against itself. And if we look at, a comparison of the human body, every cell in the body is a part of the same whole. It's functioning to give our consciousness an expression here. And if we start to recognize that on a global level and start to see, what if all your cells are fighting each other? We call that cancer. It's not sustainable, and we need to really start buckling down and making some decisions differently, changing our minds, changing our focus, and building things, because we got a lot of work to do to take this world and make it something that truly can be capable of freeing us, just like the planet frees us by the water cycle, by the way nutrients pass through, by how the underwater rivers flow through everywhere, and somehow life exists, even in the desert. Where there's nothing, life still finds a way. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It is given to us. Life is given to us. The planet is given to us. We need to start taking care of it. Like in the words of Carl Sagan, this is where we make our stand. We're just a pale blue dot, a small speck in a vast cosmic arena. And we need to preserve and cherish this pale blue dot. And we do that by preserving and cherishing one another. And through that, we continue to build. And these are the types of things that work in tandem with the technology that blockchain allows us to do, because we get into the technology side, you see that we have an immutable ledger that cannot be changed. We see that we have a distributed system that cannot be altered, that cannot be corrupted from a central point. We see that we can not only just transfer value in a currency, we can transfer data, we can store data, we can collect it, we can do different proof methods, we can develop trust with one another in a mathematical way, because you cannot corrupt the fabrics of mathematics. Never. As much as you try to say it blue in the face, 1 + 1 will always be 2. And the beauty of that is everybody can independently verify that, because we don't always make the right decisions. We make mistakes. We're all human. And that's why we need to listen to one another and let each other check and balance one another. And that's part of what's so beautiful about blockchains, is every node checks one another. Every node sees what every other node does. And if you see one node get a little rogue, all the other nodes say, hey, man, we're not going to fly with this. And so the best thing I can say about it is we're entering into a revolution right now. And whether we like to say it or not, who is John Galt? This world itself is going into this. These things that we've been imagining for a long time are coming to fruition. So what side of it are we going to be on? What are we going to do about it? Are we going to do it peacefully? Are we going to do it violently? Are we going to protest? Because protesting doesn't work, does it? Look at the 60s. It just empowers your enemy, because they're like, hey, look, all these guys are holding signs for us. Hey, look at us. We're that much better now. But thing is, all we have to do is just turn our backs on it. We have to just change our focus. We don't need to worry about this crap anymore. We don't need to get our shoes dirty mucking in the mud that somebody else made. We just say, hey, a mud puddle, let's walk around that, because we got something better. We got bridges, we got flying cars, and the technology is here. It is here. It's already been here. We just don't realize we can all do it. And we can all put these pieces together to make this new system that we don't have to worry about, that can be like was done in 1776. And interesting enough, this solar eclipse that we had this year, who saw this eclipse? You guys see it? Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, eerie moment for me. I saw the full thing, and it's just, you know, there's the lambs are like, you know, going to it, and it just, but for that moment, for that minute and a half, everybody stopped. They just stopped and let silence exist. And they all looked at this eclipse, and they saw it all together. And for that minute, people forgot about their problems with each other. People forgot about the strife. And they were all one for that moment. And coming to that, the last time we had an eclipse that was only seen in America was, guess when? 1776. So there's interesting, how should I say it, signs kind of coming around, especially when we're seeing anybody that, I mean, I'm sure you're all very familiar with the Federal Reserve, and now we're seeing, you know, the national debt quadrupling, and I mean, going ridiculous levels. Now they're actually going to get rid of the debt ceiling because, of course, we are living in a debt-based currency. Nobody reads the fine print. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. But that's coming to an end. We're seeing hyperinflation all over the world. We're seeing these problems that are coming out. We're seeing these wars trying to be started. And now is very, very important for all of us to stay united, to stay together, to, I guess, preserve ourselves, preserve our humanity, like Napolitano was saying. I mean, humanity is where we all are. We're all here together. So we all need to figure out how we're going to continue to work together and how we're going to build a better way. Because if we don't, we might not have a world to give our children. And that's something we all need to seriously consider, because now is the time to make this change. And this change starts in your heart, and it starts in your mind. It starts in you saying, you know what, I'm not going to watch the news today. You know what, I'm going to leave my cell phone here while I go and I play with my daughter and son. You know, I'm going to go walk outside and get some fresh air. I'm going to take my shoes off and feel the grass. I'm going to go for a hike. I'm going to go do some learning today. Simplest things like that start allowing us to expand in our awareness. And even something as simple as, I don't know if you guys are familiar. Have you heard of the Schumann frequency? Anybody know what the Schumann frequency is? Yeah, all right, we got some peeps. So the Schumann frequency actually was discovered by Nikola Tesla. Now they all called him crazy back in those days. And around 6 to 7 hertz. It was a very stable frequency because Earth is like a giant capacitor. Okay, so the upper ionosphere and the ground, lightning goes up and down, and there's this frequency that you could measure. Now, I don't know if any of you are aware, but that frequency has been on the rise since the 80s. Now it's pushing close to 20, 30 hertz, fluctuates a lot, but that affects every single one of us. We have 64 base pairs of DNA, and we only use 8. That means we have 56 base pairs. They call it non-coded DNA or junk DNA. We already have the code. It's already there. We're already evolved enough to be what we can be. And these types of things are starting to be revealed more and more. And of course, you know, conventional science will say, oh yeah, well, that's pseudoscience or that's what, well, I mean, I can measure with an oscilloscope my bioelectrical frequency, and I can see how my bioelectrical frequency affects other people's. And you can start to see and measure electromagnetic fields around people. And we're starting to breach into, especially with quantum mechanics, a completely new type of science that is showing us that the reality that we perceive may not be the reality we perceive. You have the uncertainty principle. Nothing exists until it's measured. It does not have a quantum state until you measure that state. Think about that. Until you measure it. That means what you measure everything to be, what you think things to be is what they're going to be. Now, that's a really interesting type of science because it completely throws all our conventional classical physics out the window. Quantum mechanics is completely changing the way we all think, and that's a common bridge that we all need, because the last Renaissance is when they said, hey, we're not going to listen to the crown anymore. We're going to independently verify each other with the scientific method. We're going to put these facts out here, and we're going to allow other people to check those facts. And then that will determine the veracity of our argument. And That, I think, is coming upon now. We have two choices. We can either destroy ourselves, or we're going to have a new renaissance. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I want to have another renaissance. I mean, the arts, music, peace, love. It's about time. We need this as a planet. We need this as people because we've been deprived too long. I'm sick of seeing people in China that are stuck in these little boxes, 4x8, barely surviving, dying. All these people that are just thrown under the bus. People that are homeless. When I go to Hollywood, there's homeless people everywhere. It breaks my heart. That shouldn't be that way because we're all born into this debt. We're all born into this system, and the economic system is completely controlled by a single entity. And that has created thousands of people to be out of work, thousands of people to be struggling. And I think everybody, it's our God-given right to have the same opportunity for our success. But not everybody has that. Not everybody's born into the same positions. And that's something that we need to truly recognize because everybody deserves the same opportunity. Now, not everybody should have the same, oh, here's a handout, we're going to give the public, blah, blah, blah. No. Everybody needs to earn their way. But if you don't have the opportunity to, you may never even see 5 miles out of your village. I mean, some people in third world countries, I don't know if any of you've traveled, it's really eye-opening. Some of these people have not traveled more than 3 to 5 miles from their village. 3 to 5 miles. That little village is all they've ever known. And I think that with the technology we have these days, we don't need to have that anymore. There doesn't need to be this imbalance just so that a few can live off of the many. And they who will not leave us alone, they know that. They don't want us to know that. That's a secret they don't want us to know. Because we know that. We're not going to let this happen anymore. We are opting in. We are volunteering our power. We are giving it away by saying, oh, well, 50% taxes. I guess that's, it's not death in taxes. That's all life. Well, they were protesting like 2 to 5% with the Boston Tea Party. Like, if that. Like, come on, people. Like, why are we allowing everybody to just rule? That's the biggest thing is like, these guys have no power. They are the powers that were to me. They only have power because we give them power. And now we have Bitcoin, we have Nexus, we have cryptocurrencies, and we can choose what we want to empower. We can choose who we want to empower. And those types of things are what's going to bring people together. Those types of things are what's going to allow this peaceful revolution to happen. We don't need to fight them. We just need to make them obsolete. And we make them obsolete by making a new model that is better than their model. And everything about cryptography, everything about blockchain, it is completely superior in every single way. The more we all look at it, the more I'm like, well, we got this transaction right here, digital signatures. We got hash cash, which is, just glorified checksums, if we want to call it that, with, a high cost. Well, look at this. Now we have this immutable ledger. What else are we going to make immutable? We got our currency immutable. Why don't we make some transparency with all these politicians? Oh, wait, you mean we can't have these little voter fraud things with counties recounting and all this paper possibly being burned? Who knows? But we don't know. We can't see that as people. We're sitting here like, what the hell is this world doing sometimes? Like, who are these monkeys in control? Like, what are they doing? How does it cost $20,000 for a pencil and $5,000 for a hammer in Iraq? What is going on? And then we start asking that question and be like, oh man, that's a deep rabbit hole. But ultimately, we can have a little bit better idea of these things when we have blockchain, when we have transparency, when we have accountability. That is something that I think all politicians are missing. What if you could just have, let's say, something we're developing with Nexus, an ambassador contract. Now the whole network can vote it through different Republic-style voting groups that are done through your signature chains. I'll get to all that stuff, the techie stuff tomorrow, but I'll spare you details. But then we elect, let's say, somebody to represent us for whatever, because not everybody wants to, represent themselves. They're just like, oh, yeah, I just kind of want to sit in my house and do whatever and have somebody else do the work for me. And this contract's put out there. Now, this contract could have a certain amount of funds deposited into it or minted into it over a specific time on the terms of this contract. And people can compete for these contracts. And then let's say we see this one guy that's supposed to be building a road. Let's just say in Arizona, for an example, so let's just say we get rid of the federal, we're make our own highway. Here's an ambassador contract for these guys. And then we start seeing that, they're spending that money on hookers and blow or whatever else these guys do. And we'll be like, well, that's not very nice. Well, let's fire him. And what if we could do that too? What if we could just vote to fire him in an instant, just like that? We're gonna have a lot better politicians because they're gonna have to step up their game or like, get some better bullshit going or whatever. But like, either way, like these types of things, they're gonna accelerate. And that's what we're gonna be seeing. Everything's gonna be accelerating. Proliferation, exponential growth. That's what's happening with the world right now. There's so many people. The Schumann frequency is increasing. People are waking up. We're realizing these truths. And the biggest truth we're realizing is the unalienable truth that we're all created equal. We're all the same here. We all have the same amount of life force within us. And that's something we can't forget. We go and we make glorious things. We build this grand whatever. But it's about the creation, not about you as a creator. That's at least how I see it. You make something beautiful. It's beautiful. You make it for the sake of beauty, not for the sake of ego and self-importance. Imagine self-importance. It's a delusion. Because we're all here, we're all capable. We all have the same opportunities. Some of us exercise other things to build things. Some of us just, want to consume. And we're all here with that same opportunity. We're all here with that same purpose to just learn. That's all we need to do. The meaning of life, I think the meaning of life is life. And you know what I think life means? Life is learning. When you don't learn, what else is there to do? You get stuck, you get bored, you turn to other methods in order to try to elevate yourself back to that position. We're all here to grow, and we're all here to grow together. And so if we neglect that fact, we're not going to be able to be what we can be. We're not going to be able to see this beauty we can all create together. And that's something I still believe in. I still believe in human ingenuity. I still believe in the human expression and how beautiful it really is, and how I think some people have maybe forgotten that. And coming full circle back to blockchain, this is starting to remind me of that same thing, because people are seeing a direct reflection of their beliefs in a currency and the value and the transmission and the services. We're starting to see real life expressions of that. We believe in Bitcoin, so therefore Bitcoin is going to become bigger. Bitcoin is going to grow. And that's something that we all need to remember, is that it's what we choose to believe, it's what we choose to focus on that really is going to magnetize everything into our lives. Now, call it whatever you want to call it. I call it physics, but other people will call it what everybody's got to have an opinion, right? But that's what makes the world go around. But ultimately, I think it's about damn time that we all get together. And I think it's amazing that all of you have come together here, and that we're all here to share and learn and grow from one another and share the knowledge that we have. And it's a privilege to be standing on stage after somebody like Napolitano and to be able to listen to him and learn from him and see everything he's gone through among all these other people. And so with that, I guess I shall introduce, how long? Yeah, well, sorry. I'm bad on the time thing. I'm kind of a timeless person. My bad, guys. I get on a rant, like everybody knows, oh, there goes Colin again.